Today we are learning Lesson 14, Writing Division Expressions. And the way we're going to be doing it is by filling in all four of these boxes. And if you noticed, we'll be working with equivalent expressions. The directions say to fill in the three remaining squares so that all the squares contain equivalent expressions. And they've already given us 15 divided by 3. And something that we should know, but we may not remember, is that if 15 comes first, it is called the dividend. And then the division sign goes next, and our next number, because 15 is being divided by 3, the 3 is our divisor. Once we know that, we can work with a lot of these boxes already. So now I'm going to represent 15 divided by 3 using words in the upper box. The quotient of 15 and 3. Another way that you can say it is 15 divided by 3. And we say that because quotient is the answer to the division problem. Looking across, our 15 goes inside our division symbol because it is the dividend and it is what's being divided. Therefore, the 3 goes on the outside because that's what it's being divided by. It is called the divisor. As we learned in our last lesson, division can also be represented by a fraction. And so in this case, the dividend, or the 15, goes on the top, which is called the numerator. And the 3, because 15 divided by 3, the 3 goes on the bottom. Now, instead of using numbers, let's use the vocabulary words dividend and divisor to fill in these boxes. And what I would like you to do is to write this on your paper because as we continue on, you're going to need to have this as a reference. Starting in the lower left-hand corner, we know that the first one is a dividend, and the second one is a divisor. Okay. Right above, we have, in words, the quotient of the dividend and the divisor. You could also say the dividend divided by the divisor, but that's kind of redundant. So you will see the word quotient, which means the answer to a division problem, and so you want to get used to seeing that. Okay, so the next one is the division symbol. Here, we're going to write the dividend on the inside of the symbol and divisor on the out. Since we can also represent division as a fraction, we're going to write our dividend in our numerator and our divisor as our denominator. Okay, make sure you have that written down so that when we do the next one, you'll know where to put everything. Now we're going to substitute again numbers and variables in where we had the word. So let's look at this first expression, 5 divided by p. Okay, so I know that 5 is my dividend and p is my divisor. So if I write it in word form, it becomes 5 divided by p. 5 divided by p. It could also be written as the quotient of 5 and p. So I want you to know that both of these are correct. You might say either one of them, and I just want you to be able to see both of them if you need to. Looking at our division sign, we're going to put 5 on the inside where the dividend goes and p on the outside where the divisor goes. That being the case, moving down to now our fraction, our dividend goes, looking at the paper we just did, our dividend goes up top and our divisor goes on the bottom. Our dividend is 5 and that goes in the numerator and our divisor is p, and that goes in the denominator. Our next problem starts with the words already given to us, the quotient of G and H. And we learned from the previous lesson that when we have the word quotient, we want to connect that with the word and. So that G is our dividend and H is our divisor because it came after the and. And so that's where that goes. If we then scoot over to our division sign, we can put in our dividend on the inside. Our dividend here is our G, and our divisor goes on the outside. That's where H goes. And so that being the case, we can now look at our fraction, and our dividend for our fraction is the numerator, and so that is where our G goes, and our denominator is where our divisor goes, which in this case is H. I hope at this point you're getting the hang of it and ready for some questions about it. Now we'll start in the upper right-hand corner with the W on the outside and the 23 on the inside. Now let's see what you remember. Which number is the dividend and belongs on the left-hand side of the division sign? Well, 23 is our dividend, and therefore it belongs on the left-hand side. That makes W our divisor and belongs on the right-hand side. All right, let's now scoot over to our fraction. And which number goes in the numerator or the top part of our fraction right here? Since 23 is our dividend always goes in the numerator part. And that means that W is our divisor and goes in the denominator part or the bottom of the fraction. All right, now the toughest part. How do we write this in words? Well, we can say 23 divided by W. We can also say the quotient of 23 and W. Both of those are acceptable. All right, we're moving right along. Okay, so let's throw a little challenge in here. We have Y and the fraction bar, x plus 8. So let's go right above. Where are we going to put the x plus 8? On the inside or the outside of the above box? Right, since x plus 8 is our divisor, we're going to put it on the outside of the box. And that means that the y is our dividend and goes on the inside of the box. Okay, so let's see then which one goes on the left-hand side of the division sign. Very good. The y is a dividend, so it goes on the left-hand side of the division sign, which means the x plus 8 goes on the right-hand side, and because it is an expression and it's a quantity of something, we have to group it with our parentheses. Don't forget that. So our last one is our words. And so how can we say this with, we're not going to use quotient this time, we're just going to use divided by. Okay? So we would start with y divided by, and we don't just say x plus 8. We have to say either the quantity of x and 8 or the sum of x and 8. I'm going to go with the sum, because the addition sign, we all know this, means that it's the sum. So the sum of x and 8. Okay? If I had said the quantity, I'd have to say the quantity of x plus 8. But since I'm saying the sum, I know that by using the word sum, the and means plus in this case. Okay, our next one starts with the words 7 divided by the quantity a minus 6. And so it's best, if we're going to do that, to go to the box right below it. Now, we know from our last lesson that divided by is written that way, so we would write the 7 on the left-hand side, and then the quantity of a minus 6 on the right-hand side, and because it's a term, we have to put our parentheses, which are our grouping symbols, around the a minus 6. And that's also because we had the word quantity, and so therefore we have to put our parentheses around it. Okay, so now we know what our dividend and our divisor are. We can fill in the next one. So let's scoot on over to our division sign. Which number goes on the inside, or which term? Correct. Because you have the paper on already written down, you know that the dividend goes on the inside, and that's 7. So therefore the a minus 6 is a divisor and goes on the outside. Okay, scooting down to our fraction part, which one goes on the bottom, or the denominator? Which one goes down here? Okay, the a minus 6, which is our divisor, goes on the bottom, which is considered the dividend, the divisor and the denominator. And so therefore the one on the top would be the dividend, and that's the 7. So it's 7 divided by a minus 6. And remember that we don't need the parentheses when we're doing it as a fraction, because we'll automatically know that we would do the bottom one first. Okay, so our next one is given the division sign, and so I'm not going to say how it is. Let's see if we can remember it. Let's go ahead and do the fraction one first and see if we know which number goes on the top, or the numerator part. Which number or which expression? Okay, it's m plus 11, because m plus 11 is in our dividend spot right above, so 3, which is our divisor, goes down as our denominator. All right, very good. So scooting over now to our division sign, which number or expression goes here on the left-hand side of the division symbol? Okay, looking at the paper that you have already written down, you know that the dividend goes on the left-hand side, so the divisor of 3 goes on the right-hand side. All right, and now for the real challenging part. How do we write this? There are a few ways. Which way would you pick? Well, first, let me not forget to put down our parentheses, because we have a quantity here. And then looking above now, we could say the sum of m and 11 divided by 3. The sum of m and 11 divided by 3. We could also say the quotient of the quantity m plus 11 and 3. However, it's easier just to say the sum of m and 11 divided by 3, so we'll stick with that one. Okay, our next one is f plus 2 divided by g. So let's go with the words first this time. What would you write, what would you choose to write for f plus 2 divided by g? Well, hopefully it's something along the lines of the sum of f and 2 divided by g, which is what we just had. So that's a nice one to start with, because we already did that one. All right, let's scoot over to our division symbol. What number goes on, or term, what expression goes in, let's go inside. Which goes inside? By now, I hope you have it quick that it is f plus 2, and therefore, because that's the dividend, the g, which is our divisor, goes on the outside. Alrighty? That being the case, which letter, term, what one goes on in the bottom, the denominator? What goes in the denominator? G goes in the denominator, and f plus 2, which is our dividend, goes in the numerator. All right, I hope you're getting the hang of this now. All right, let's make it really challenging. And let's just go backwards and around. So our first expression is c minus 9. Our second one is d plus 3. So which one goes on the outside in our divisor? The expression d plus 3 goes on the outside of the divisor. Very good. Which means c minus 9 is our dividend and goes on the inside. All right. Let's not go over the word yet. Let's save that for last. And let's say which one goes on the left-hand side of our division symbol. Which expression? Well, since our dividend is c minus 9, we know that c minus 9 goes on the left-hand side. Don't forget our parentheses, because we have to group that. And therefore, our d plus 3 goes on the right-hand side, also with parentheses. All right, so now how do we write this? So there are two ways you could do this. The quotient of c minus 9 and d plus 3, or you could say the quantity c minus 9 divided by the quantity d plus 3. Both of those are acceptable. We're going to work with this one being the one that's probably the best one right now. And so, yeah. Okay, so after watching this, there'll be one small assignment for assessments, as you did earlier, which will have about 3 or 4 more problems that you can do, and you should be able to ace it. Thanks.